Good morning, everyone. We have a great show lined up for you today on SUNUP. Rain arrived in parts of the state this week. We're talking with our small grain specialist about what it could mean for those dry fields where wheat is starting to emerge or still needs to be planted. Then the next installment of our popular ongoing series examining how much it actually costs to raise a cow these days. And we learn what makes Shannon Engel a distinguished alumna in the Ferguson College of Agriculture. We're glad you're with us today for an all-new SUNUP starting right now. We begin this morning talking about wheat planting with Dr. Oliveira Silva, our OSU Extension small grain specialist. And Amanda, what are you hearing from producers around the state?
Oh, I'm hearing, I would say it's a mixed bag of information. So I texted the group yesterday through our wheat group text, and I got different types of response. But overall, most of the producers and their graze out or dual purpose systems are already done planting, or at least dusted in their wheat. Some of them were able to take advantage of that early moisture that we had early in September, and some actually decided to separate. Okay, so the wheat that goes to dual purpose, we plant, we may dust it in, and then we are just gonna wait on the rain for that wheat that is intended for grain-only production.
We saw a little bit of rain this week, but it was pretty limited and not that much.
Yeah, we got from maybe 1/4 inch, 1/10 of an inch to 1 inch in north central Oklahoma mostly, and that's gonna be really helpful. So I'm sure in that area we are gonna see more activity, and that's a great time to get that amount of moisture. So hopefully we'll have more coming to keep our wheat growing.
Another challenge is fall armyworms. We've seen a lot of them this year. What is the current status?
Yes, and through the group, I heard reports that they are seeing a second wave of armyworms showing up again. So it was really bad in September, and with all these warm temperatures, we have to stay on the lookout for it.
Okay. If people are scouting and starting to see armyworms again, do they have any options at this stage?
Well, some people are actually spraying. We'll have to spray again. Some people will still have the seed treatment are still effective, so they just have to watch and see what is the armyworm population in their farm and make their decision based on previous treatment and in the amount of armyworms they see.
It's also the time of year you and the team get the variety trials set up around the state. What's the progress there?
I would say we are about halfway done. So for our dual purpose plots, we are all planted. We planted in the Panhandle last week. We might take a chance now in north central Oklahoma with this rain that we had. Southwest, Altos, Chickasha, we'll wait a little bit longer.
You talked about the group text. Remind our viewers what that is, that wheat group, and how they can sign up if they want to get in touch with you.
Yeah, so we have a phone number where we text farmers and they can text us back. So we text them with wheat updates, anything that is related to wheat. So the wheat team has this phone number that we can just text with information, but we also ask for updates. So for whatever they are seeing in their area, or they're like now with planting conditions. So it's a way for us to communicate with them and for them to communicate with us. So sometimes, especially when we had a lot of issues with armyworms, they would send us pictures, or if they have any other problems in their farm, they can send us a picture, they can send us message anytime, and it's just a way to get in touch on a two-way communication basis. Sometimes you can't get a hold of everybody, or just by observing things around the state when you're driving around. But this way it's a more direct interaction and communication with them. So it's really nice. So I hope more people enroll in it.
I'm sure they will after this. Well, Amanda, thanks a lot. I'm sure we'll chat with you again in the coming weeks. And for a link to the wheat group text that Amanda talked about, we have it for you at sunup.okstate.edu. We continue our popular series with Dr. Dave Lalman again this week, looking at how much it actually takes to raise a cow in 2025. This week, he talks with SUNUP's Curtis Hare about how feed can actually make or break your operation.
We're continuing our conversations with our OSU Extension beef cattle specialist, Dr. Dave Lalman, on the costs to run a cow. And Dave, the past couple of weeks we've been talking about the things that producers can do, and especially, the difference between the top 1/3 earning producers and the bottom 1/3 earning producers and what separates them. And one of the things you mentioned before we let off last time was nutrition.
Yeah, it's always a big part of the budget. And those top 1/3 profitable producers do a good job of controlling that cost. And so today I thought we might just kind of talk through, kind of a logical sequence to think about when it comes to making informed decisions about the nutrition program to not only meet the requirements of the animals, but control the cost.
And so, for the top 1/3 earning producers, like you mentioned, what are some things that they do to control that cost when it comes to feeding?
Well, first of all, they know their cost, right? And they really do their homework to see where they can fine tune and cut back or land in that sweet spot of not spending too much, but meeting the requirements of the animals so that they'll be productive.
And a lot of this is like with producers, maybe in that bottom 1/3 is they just really don't know exactly how much or how less they're feeding.
Yeah, well, it could be the amount they're feeding or the content of what they're feeding that might not fit as well as it could. And so maybe a good point for today's session is if they're not comfortable working with a nutrition program or something to hit that sweet spot between the cost and the requirements of the animal, will then seek out a professional that's got a lot of experience doing that. And our extension educators certainly can do that, and our area livestock specialists. We provide a lot of tools through extension to help people work through those.
So do you have an example about how a producer could actually work this into their production to figure out how much they're feeding?
So, the first thing is to know your cost, and let's take a native range example and kind of work through those costs. So let's say in this part of the state, a common yield on native pastures maybe around 3,500 pounds. Harvest efficiency, we'll use 28%, so we'll multiply 3,500 times 0.28. That gives you 980 pounds of forage per acre consumed by the cows, okay? If we pay $30 total, rent plus maybe $5 of cost, that would give you about 3 cents per pound of forage consumed, or $60 per ton of dry matter consumed on that acre of land.
Okay, but what about the quality?
Yeah, so that's a good point. We've had our native pastures tested here just recently, this time of year, and normally our native range pasture would be around 7% protein and around 57 to 58% TDN in early October. This year it's 6 and 55, so it's a little bit lower quality this year than it has been. So, again, it points out the need for producers to know their cost and know the quality of their forage.
And that's a lot of information that could probably seem overwhelming, to a producer who's ready to put pen to the paper. But there are, like you mentioned, there are a lot of extension resources available to help producers, like the feeder calibration clinics that SUNUP's covered over the years and things like that.
The calculator program, and that's what I used this morning to calculate those numbers, and I did it in about 10 minutes. So yeah, producers contact their extension educator, get familiar with all the resources that we have and make good use of them. And yes, it's not that difficult though to to make solid decisions that minimize the cost but meet the animal's requirement.
And as you mentioned, and as Dr. Pill mentioned, in these type of circumstances with high cattle prices, knowing exactly what you're feeding is extremely important.
Very important.
Alrighty, thanks Dave. And if you'd like some more information about the resources that Dave mentioned, just go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Hello, Oklahoma. Emma White here with your weekly Mesonet Weather Report. With the rains this past Monday, we became a state divided. This temperature map shows some beautiful colors across it with the time on Monday captured while it was raining. This map is a useful tool to show how much Oklahoma can differ across the state in terms of the weather, such as rainfall distribution and temperature. In fact, here is Monday's precipitation map for near the same time. The cooler temperatures from the central to northwest correspond well to the areas of precipitation. Maps like these are accessible on our weather tab of mesonet.org or on the app. But back to the topic at hand, what did those rains mean for soil moisture in the state? Here is the October 12% plant available water for the top 4 inches of the soil. That was before the rains, with single digits even in the Panhandle and Central counties. Here's the same percent plant available water map for October 14th after a bit of rain in the central and northwest counties. Single digits remain in the Panhandle and in parts of central Oklahoma, which is not ideal for winter wheat growth there. However, the numbers have improved in the north central counties. This is good news for those winter wheat areas. But that was last week's results. What about going forward? This 6 to 10 day outlook map through October 24th is showing at least near normal to leaning above normal precipitation for the state. So at least we're not expecting to be worse off than average. However, the state could use some above average precipitation. As for temperature, here is a forecast map for Sunday, October 19th. The temperatures are looking a little cooler than the 80s and even low 90s we had in the state last week. Even better, the temperatures are expected to stay cooler for most days this coming week. Gary McManus is up next with your state climatology report.
Thanks, Emma, and good morning, everyone. Well, we actually had some positive improvements on the U.S. Drought Monitor map, but unfortunately we had some worsening condition as well. Let's take a look at that newest map and see where we are. Well, now we have a large area of central over into east central Oklahoma covered by at least moderate drought. We also see, now this is the first time since May 20th, we have some of those darker colors on the map, some small areas down across parts of Cleveland County, up across Payne County. Those are severe drought indications, so D1 on the moderate, D2 on the severe drought. And then we have a larger area of abnormally dry conditions covering much of that southeastern 2/3 of the state, and those are areas which could, further go into drought if we don't see significant rainfall soon. Now, speaking of rainfall, you can tell from the consecutive days with less than a 1/4 inch of rainfall map from the Mesonet exactly where it rained a good amount and where it didn't. So much of the state still from let's say 25 to 50 days without a good rainfall, at least in a single day. And then you see some areas that got some decent rainfall. Some of these areas got just over a 1/4 inch, but we did have some areas, as was shown previously, of an inch or more. So it's a mixed bag across the state, and unfortunately much of that bag is worsening as we go forward. Now, my role as the main input person in Oklahoma to the U.S. Drought Monitor, where I send suggestions to the National Drought Monitor author. I get a lot of pictures from across the state from ag producers showing me what exactly the conditions are in their area. Here you can see a very pitiful looking field down in Greer County. And here from McIntosh County you can see low ponds indicative of a little bit longer period of drought up in that region of the. So it doesn't matter if we see those longer term or shorter term impact indications. Drought is here in Oklahoma and it is starting to flourish. So we definitely need rainfall soon. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
A couple of educational opportunities you may want to check out. First, the Ranchers Thursday Lunchtime Series is back for the next few weeks. Tune in at noon on October 23rd on the Zoom webinar to learn about selecting and managing replacement heifers for long-term success. Go to the SUNUP website or scan the QR code on your screen to learn more and register for the webinar. And also on October 23rd, an all-day workshop in and around Stillwater for beginning vegetable producers. Learn about crop strategies and post-harvest management, live demonstrations, soil health, pest prevention, irrigation, plus the business side, food safety, and equipment. There's no cost, and the event includes lunch. Register from the link on the SUNUP website or the QR code on your screen.
Hello, I'm OSU agricultural economist John Michael Riley, and welcome to this week's Market Monitor. So since the last time we visited, I would say lots of things have happened, but they haven't because, as you're probably well aware, we're still in the midst of a shutdown with the government. About this time of the month is when we receive our monthly crop report and World Ag Supply and Demand Estimates report. We're not getting that right now, and my expectation is they're just going to skip October and roll right into November unless something changes pretty quickly. But still, the market was anticipating what may have happened there. And overall, if you hear from or listen to trade analysts and market analysts, most were expecting bigger supplies for our summer crops. And so, leading into what would have been the report, there was some of that angst and anticipation. We didn't get the report, and as a result, markets are kind of trying to find their way right now. Overall, since the start of the month, we've seen prices decline. There has been some expectation of some trade talks. Those have fizzled out. And as a result of that, markets were on quite a roller coaster for those few days until we heard about the cancellation of the meeting with President Trump and Xi Jinping. So overall, just a sour tone in the market over the past couple of weeks. So to put things in a little bit of perspective, if we go back since the last reports that we received, we've seen corn prices decline about 20 cents per bushel. We've seen soybean prices decline about 50 cents per bushel, and wheat prices for our current crop that's being planted, so these would be June, July of 2026, those have declined about 40 cents a bushel. So overall, a pretty drastic moves in the marketplace just since the last reports that we received from USDA. Let's put this in a perspective with regard to what we're seeing in Oklahoma. If we use the most recent projections for yield, that 20 cent per bushel decline in corn is about $26 per acre. That 50 cent per bushel decline in soybeans results in a $14.50 per acre decline. And then if wheat shakes out like it did in 2025, as we're looking at 2025 plantings for 2026 harvest, that would be about $15.20 per acre. On the bright side, I guess, if there is there are some talks of potential farm payments, and for the time being, those are on halt given the shutdown, but we'll continue to monitor that as things move forward and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Good morning, Oklahoma. Welcome to Cow-Calf Corner. Our topic this week is to follow up on our title from last week, where we addressed increasing carcass weights, cattle spending more days on feed, and the resulting mix of higher quality grade, higher percentage of prime quality grade in particular, and the new normal with regard to these carcass weights, robust consumer demand, the willingness of consumers to pay higher prices than ever for great tasting, high quality beef. And that led to some questions, and some really good questions. This week we address the most commonly asked question that we got into after last week's topic, which basically was, if we're feeding cattle longer and taking them to heavier weights and seeing these higher quality grades in the mix, do we need to address this in our breeding programs at the commercial cow-calf level and select for even more growth and accordingly the increased mature cow size that may come with it? And in short, the answer is no. And we'll get into a little bit of the discussion of why the answer to that is no. If we take a look at what is currently going on in our industry, we haven't really seen a dramatic increase in weaning weights in the cow-calf sector going back for some time. But in spite of this, we are seeing phenomenal post-weaning growth, cattle being taken to heavier weights than ever, and heavier carcass weights than we've ever seen before. This suggests that at the cow-calf level, we may not have the production environment that is permitting our cows to actually give their full milk potential, or these calves to grow to their full weaning growth potential up to that point, and we're seeing some compensatory gain in them later on. That's what information suggests as we take a look at that right now. Very seldom, if we think in the commercial cow-calf sector, is additional mature weight that we've got to maintain actually offset by increased calf weaning weights that we have to sell. We all like heavier weaning weights when it comes time to market calves, but if we look at this holistically, efficiency and profitability may be better served in the commercial cow-calf sector by addressing other economically important traits and selection programs and making sure we don't end up with cows that are too big. A second question that came up, if I at the commercial cow-calf sector right now am producing really top flight calves with tremendous post-weaning genetic potential for growth and end product merit, how can I capitalize on that? And I refer back to our topic on August 18th in the Cow-Calf Corner newsletter that would have been on SUNUP the following weekend, where we addressed information asymmetry when marketing cattle, and producers should refer to that information. I hope this information helps, and as always, thanks for joining us on Cow-Calf Corner.
Finally today, we learn what makes Shannon Engel a 2025 Distinguished Alumna in the Ferguson College of Agriculture. Video production manager Craig Woods put together our story.
From western Oklahoma to one of America's largest private companies, Shannon Engel's story is rooted in grit, growth, and giving back. Shannon grew up on her family farm in the small western Oklahoma town of Amarita.
So going to a very small school, Burlington at that point in time had approximately 130 kids, K through 12, and my dad had a cow-calf operation. When I was younger, my father and my grandfather had a custom harvesting operation. So from the moment I was born, I was certainly exposed to agriculture and that way of life. Many of those first early years of my life, we went along in the custom harvesting. Coming from a farming family, I remember my senior year in high school having a moment of going, I don't know if I can afford to go to college. Kind of chokes me up, actually. I don't know if I can afford to go to college, and how am I going to make ends meet? And the only thing that I knew was just to apply myself. And if that was in school, if that was in extracurricular activities, no matter what that was, I knew I needed to demonstrate that drive.
Shannon began her college journey at Oklahoma State University, studying agricultural communications, but soon discovered something she enjoyed even more.
I think it was actually my first Ag Econ class that it was just something that I was like, wow, I really like this. Growing up, I worked at the local co-op. My junior year, I got an offer from Koch for an internship. I had multiple offers, both in, oil and gas, agricultural industries, accounting as well. And as I worked through the selection process, I actually turned down a Koch internship offer, and I went and worked for Williams Energy in Tulsa.
Shannon received her bachelor's degree in agricultural economics and accounting in 2002 and started her career. But when the oil and gas industry was devastated by the Enron scandal, Shannon decided to change paths. Following her employment at Williams Energy, Shannon reconnected with her contacts at Koch Industries, and she was eventually hired as an accountant for the company.
I think I was the only Ag Econ accounting new hire into Koch when I started, but I was quickly able to hit the ground running. Koch is a place where they just, expect that you'll figure it out, you'll find new and better ways and be innovative, and you'll be curious and you'll ask questions. and really be and think like an owner. I found myself in maybe about a year after I started, working on one of our first major acquisitions. I spent about 9 months working 20, I don't remember, but working a number of hours a day.
Shannon served as Vice President of Land, Infrastructure, Facilities, and Transactions for almost 7 years. But now she is the Vice President and CFO for Flint Hills Resources, a company owned by Koch Industries.
Shannon has done well with Koch Industries, moving up through the organization. But what I'll say about Shannon is she has not forgotten Oklahoma State University and the Division of Agriculture. She has stayed active with recruiting students, finding good students that would fit into Koch's culture, and mentoring them and helping them to get those internships.
In 2017, she received the Ferguson College of Agriculture Early Career Achievement Award.
When I called Shannon and told her that she'd been selected to win this award, of course she was excited, but mainly what she wanted to talk about was the new OSU intern that had just shown up in her office and how excited she was to work with that student over the course of the summer. And that's just so impactful for our students, and it's what we need for our students to be successful.
Throughout the years, as I've gone back to try to contribute to the Ag Econ department or to the Ferguson College of Ag, it always feels like home. I mean, it amazes me, as you walk into the building and you see the familiar faces, that they actually remember you. I think that certainly is a privilege of the Ferguson College of Agriculture that, I don't know that always everyone has that experience and opportunity if they're not part of the Ag College.
Celebrating Shannon Engel, 2025 Ferguson College of Agriculture Distinguished Alumni.
That'll do it for our show this week. A reminder, you can see SUNUP anytime on our website, follow us on social media, and of course, stream us anytime on YouTube, youtube.com/SUNUPTV. We leave you today with a few pictures from the recent OSU Agriculture Livestock and Range Field Day, taken by our chief photographer, Mitchell Alcala. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you next time at SUNUP.